Hey folks, I'm Brian. We're getting ready to close on our first short-term rental property, and I wanted to share with you the three most important things that we learned as we went through the process of locating, putting an offer in on this property. And we started searching online first, just trying to hone into one of a few different areas to figure out where we really wanted to be, and talk to a few different realtors. One of the things we learned very early on is that zoning is critical to the success of a short-term rental. We live in the state of Washington, and your regulations are going to be different. There are state regulations, there are potentially county regulations, there are city regulations as well. And as you're looking for a property, you need to learn what the different regulations are in different areas, because that's going to determine if you can rent the property or not. Some counties and towns in my state have banned short-term rentals in R1 residential zoned properties. And that became really important, obviously, because if you buy a property that doesn't have zoning that allows for short-term rentals, you're not going to be able to rent your property without getting fined. And then it just becomes not worth it. And you get stuck with a property that you don't actually want. Now, there are a few things that you can use to help understand what a property is zoned. First, before I talk about what you should use, let me mention what you should not use. Do not go on what a realtor says or what is in the listing. We actually found a property that we wanted to put an offer in on until I really dove into the zoning. The listing agent was certain that it could be used as a short-term rental. When I looked at the zoning, it was actually not zoned properly in the county that it was in. If we would have bought that property, we would have been stuck with it and not able to rent it. So don't trust a listing agent. Don't assume just because it says in an advertisement or a listing that, hey, you can rent this on Airbnb. Don't trust that. Make sure you understand what the property is zoned and what you can do with a property zoned in that way. So one place you can start looking is Zillow. Now, Zillow often will tell you what they understand the zoning to be. It's usually right, but I would also not rely just on what Zillow says. Again, do your own research. What is really valuable off of Zillow is you can see a parcel number of the property. And that parcel number is what you're going to use then on a city or county website to actually look up the zoning. A lot of the local real estate sites and even the national real estate sites, they're not going to give you that parcel number. So Zillow is a good place to get that. Once you have that, you've got to do a little bit of searching on your own for your area, because different counties have it set up differently. Different states have it set up differently. You've got to find a tool that works for you online that allows you to look up with that parcel number what the property is zoned. Now, if you can't find the tool, then you're going to have to go to the planning office for whoever has zoning jurisdiction on the property that you're looking at. So again, it might be a county, it might be a city that you're going to have to go reach out to their planning department and ask them, hey, what is this parcel number zoned as? And what are the restrictions that come with that zoning? So the second most important aspect that we considered in our search was the location. We thought about location in a couple of different ways. First off, location as it relates to the ease of which you can find the property. Is it easy to find, and is it easy to access? Are there good roads around it? Are there major roads to the general area? That kind of thing. Then the second look on location was thinking about what is around this property. Now, if you're looking for your first property, probably not looking for a destination property. You're going to want other things for your guests to do when they come and visit your property. So look for things like museums, restaurants, state or national parks, and other types of indoor or outdoor activities that are close to the area that you're looking to buy in. Your local realtor can be a good source of that information. Also look at using travel tools such as TripAdvisor to look around and see what is in this general area. If you're not super familiar with it, TripAdvisor can show you all the activities in a given area, and you can see what people have enjoyed doing, what they haven't enjoyed doing. And that's information you can help use to augment your listing once you actually get it online. The third most important element is looking at occupancy rates and what other types of listings are available in the general area. Now, consider your competition. It's also going to be things like hotels as well. So you can do this search either on a site like Airbnb or HipCamp, whatever you plan on renting on. You could also do this on a site like Expedia, where you go in and you look at hotels in the area, look at what's around, what the prices are. And the big thing that you want to look at is what is the occupancy. So here's a way you can get an idea. Now, this isn't perfect, but it will give you a general idea of what's out there and how well does it rent. The first thing you want to do is search an area and look at a time that's 2 to 3 months out and take a search, see what comes up. Take a note of that and then do the same search, except change the date for the next weekend. Now, what that's going to give you is you're going to have two different views of the area, and you'll be able to see what is generally available and what is renting right now. You also want to consider your peak times as well. Depending on when you're looking for a property and when your peak times are, you might want to do that search a little bit differently. But the general idea is search for an area at 2 or more different times that are pretty far apart and use the difference in what's showing as available to help understand how busy an area is and how much you might be able to rent your property for. Another way to look at occupancy is to use a tool like AirDNA. There are a couple of these tools out there, but AirDNA is one that I've started using. It's got aggregated data from Airbnb, and it pulls all that data together and does analysis so you can see things like occupancy rates, average price, average time available, all different kinds of statistics around Airbnbs in a given property. They have some pretty good functionality in their free version, so you can at least get started with the free version. When you do get serious about it, I'd encourage you to look at either that service or one of its competitors and pay for the more detailed analysis and better tools. Now, in our search, we looked at hundreds of properties online over the course of 2 years, and we ended up recently looking at 4 properties in person that all fit the criteria. 2 of them we immediately crossed off of the list. The first one was a 5-unit property that was commercially zoned, but 2 of the houses had really low ceilings, and I couldn't even walk through the house without ducking down. And because of that, and because we weren't overly impressed with the rest of the property, we ended up crossing that one off the list. The other one that we immediately crossed off was actually a 10-acre piece of land that had a 2-bedroom house on it. We really hesitated on this one because we learned that the house was built by the owner, who was not a home builder. And as we toured it, we could see there was a lot of finishing work that was not done. And I'm sure there were a lot of sketchy decisions that were made in the building of this house that would be code violations or safety concerns. And in addition to that, there were a number of outbuildings that were in really rough shape that would have required a significant amount of work for what we could have initially rented only as a 2-bedroom house. So that one was crossed off immediately, as well as not something that we wanted to get into because of the extra money we would have had to spend to get it right for us to be able to rent it. The third property we looked at, we fell in love with. It was a 2-bedroom house. It was on an acre. It had great views. It was just off a main road, so it was nice and quiet, but really easy access, surrounded by museums, restaurants. There's a casino down the road, all kinds of activities for somebody to do. As we started talking about writing an offer, I wanted to make sure we really understood the zoning on this one. I went back and double checked it. And this is where I found out that even though the listing agent had put in the listing, this would be a perfect Airbnb. When I went back and double checked the zoning, it was not zoned properly to be able to rent short term. We ended up not putting an offer in on that property. The fourth property that we looked at was just up the street. It was actually right across the county line in a different county. and had different zoning. It was zoned R3, which is resort residential in Grays Harbor County in Washington State. And this property is a 5-minute walk to a beach. It's right in the middle of town. It's a small town, but it's right in the middle of it. So there's a few restaurants around. It's still close to the casino, close to a bunch of fishing outfits, and just loads of activity to do in this general area. One of the other things I liked about it was 3 bedrooms. And so everything else we looked at was 2 bedrooms, meaning that generally you're going to get higher rents when you've got 3 bedrooms as opposed to 2. There also was a lot of opportunity with this house because it was older and because the previous owners did not do all of the work. That allows us to go in and do some of that work and realize an equity gain from us going in and making some improvements, painting, fixing some broken things, making things look a little bit fresher. So with all that, we put an offer in on this house. It was accepted 2 days later, and now we've just passed the inspection. So we're just closing up a few things on the financing, and we'll be able to close in this house in a couple of weeks. We've still got a lot to do to get this ready for listing, but we're going to get going on that work. And we're working towards listing this property for rent in the next 2 to 3 months. Thanks for taking the time. If you have any questions on what we went through as far as the process and starting to look and getting to an actual offer accepted, drop them down below. If you got something out of this video, give it a thumbs up, help others get some things from this as well. Hit the subscribe button for more videos on doing short-term rentals, including Airbnb, HipCamp, Swimply, PeerSpace, and others.